Hello and welcome back to Perspectives. On today's show, we have our usual roundup of the main stories affecting the Sikh community around the world. And as the British Prime Minister lands in Delhi yesterday to visit Narendra Modi, we take another look at the case of Jagtar Singh Johal and what efforts the British government are making to secure his release after his 8th anniversary of arbitrary detention by India looms next month. Will Starmer surprise us all? Well, stay tuned to find out our thoughts on that. And I think that's slightly predictable. But anyway, all this and more on today's show. But joining me, as always, is our very own correspondent in Canada, James Cousineau. Good morning, James.
You know, Angus, I almost think it's time for me to jump on a plane and try to play the diplomatic role and get Jaggy the hell out of there. I don't know. But in any event, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another episode of Perspectives here with Angus and I. We are excited to remind you that there is on our Substack a live show happening on Saturday night, 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and you'll be able to call in live to discuss the problems with violence in the Canadian community and any other topics that you want to bring up. Other than that, remember to stick around to the end of the show tonight to see what interaction is playing out. And yes, I mean, with your comments in our comment section, and we'll find out if Angus was able to find us any Critics Corner tonight. Stick around. Back to you, Angus.
Indeed, and James and I together will be bringing on today's show our perspectives on the daily news affecting the Sikh community across the world. And indeed, as James has just said, we will take a look at loads of great comments at the end of the show, so do stay tuned for that. Right, James, let's get underway. What are you going to start us off with this morning?
We are taking a deep dive into the miscommunication, the misinformation, disinformation, and so many other things that we can talk about when it comes to the media. But we wanted to go into a bit of depth because a lot of our viewers have heard us talking about shadow banning and also geo-blocking. And some of our viewers may not actually understand what exactly that is, and others may just not know how to work around it or how to become safer in doing the workarounds. Now, this will include looking at VPNs and other methods of viewing sites or videos that may be blocked in your region, but also about disseminating what information you're finding online and how to figure out whether it's actually legitimate or not. Now, of course, we live in a world that's overflowing with information, and it's at our fingertips and, of course, our phones, in our feeds 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And how much, though, of it is real? Who decides what we get to see, and how are we being manipulated without even knowing it? This is a big concern in today's digital age as we continue to look at the different ways in which misinformation and even foreign governments, corporations, and others are using it to be malicious towards us and society as a whole. Now, we're going to take a deep dive into the digital maze. We're going to explore the growing crisis of misinformation and its malicious cousin, disinformation, and what is the difference. We've covered this before, but not quite in this context, and I think that it's important for you to understand where this is all coming from. And we're also going to look around the invisible walls that platforms build. They are referred to as shadow banning and geo-blocking. Most importantly, we'll give you the tools to navigate this complex world and become smarter digital citizen. It's not just about spotting the fake photos. It's about understanding the architecture of our modern information ecosystem. So let's begin here, folks. Of course, we want to get our definitions straight, and we often hear the terms misinformation, disinformation interchangeably. But there are fundamentally differences in those two words. The key distinction is one simple but powerful thing, and that is the intent. Now, misinformation is false information that spreads without malicious intent. Think of your friend who texts the wrong opening time for a store, or the wrong time to meet at a restaurant, or an official who misspeaks about an event date. They believe what they're saying is true. They're simply mistaken. The harm is completely unintentional. Disinformation, on the other hand, is a weapon. It is false information that is deliberately created to deceive and to manipulate or cause harm. The goal could be political, financial, or simply to sow chaos and distrust, which is something that we see a lot of at the hands of government actors. Now, There's also a third and more subtle category that you need to be aware of, and that is malinformation. This information that is based on fact but is shared out of context with the intent to do harm. Think of doxing, leaking someone's private but true information to harass them, or sharing a real quote without the context that completely changes the meaning, something we see a lot of in politics and in public discourse. That becomes the weaponization of truth. Now, in 2024, we saw these tactics deployed in alarming ways. Specifically, during the US election, AI-generated images were used, and they were used to create fake celebrity endorsements and portray candidates in a false light. During hurricane season, false narratives spread that storms were being geoengineered by the government to damage certain states. And in public health, lingering anti-vaccine misinformation was linked to a measles outbreak in Florida. This problem is only getting more complex with the rise of artificial intelligence. We're now dealing with deep fakes and incredibly realistic but entirely fake videos and audio clips. And we've done some of these samples in the past in previous episodes to show you how convincing some of these have been. We're also seeing something that's called sock puppets, and that's false online identities that are creating the illusion of widespread spread support of a certain idea. So someone who's trying to spread misinformation or disinformation and such, they do what's called creating sock puppets. So they will create thousands of followers if they have that type of time or resources, which some governments or organizations do. And then they make it appear as though they have this mass following and mass supporters, helps to push them up in the algorithms, but it also makes viewers think, oh, there's so many people following this. Maybe I got to follow this and get more information. And it's coming from a source that isn't very legitimate. So again, very important to remember that part. Now, what's scary about it is that it's becoming cheaper and faster to create thousands of lies than it is to debunk a single one. This creates what experts are calling the liar's dividend, a world where the mere existence of deep fakes allow bad actors to dismiss real, incriminating video evidence as a fake. So again, it makes it easier for someone to say that's a fake video, and people believe it's a fake video, even if it's real, and vice versa. So in a world where what you're seeing is maybe not necessarily what you should be believing. And how are you able to protect yourself? Because it is a very, very difficult path as the technology continues to evolve. Now, the answer is not to disconnect entirely, because what good is that going to do? You're going to miss out on valuable and pertinent information that may be real. Instead, what you want to do is arm yourself with a healthy dose of digital skepticism and learn a few simple, powerful verification techniques. And we're going to show you some of those here, or talk about them, so you understand, and it gives you a bit more power for our viewers. As we know, we talk a lot about the Khalistan referendum, and we support the Khalistan referendum and the Khalistan formation of a sovereign state. Therefore, we become targets ourselves of this doxing, of this shadow banning, of the misinformation from government actors from India, because they do not like the information that we spread, even though it's the truth. Now, of course, you don't need to memorize complicated checklists, and experts recommend a fast and practical method called SIFT. It has 4 simple steps that one can use. Now, the S stands for stop. This is the most important step. Before you react, before you share it, just pause. Misinformation is designed to provoke a strong emotional reaction out of the viewer or the watcher, whatever. Whether that's fear, whether it's anger, excitement, that emotion rush is a signal to slow down and engage your critical thinking, when most people are actually just taking that rush of emotion and reposting or sharing or putting their comments in there. And so again, take that pause. I is for investigating the source. Don't just read the article. Investigate the person or the publication that produced it. We know that there are so many false news agencies and misinformation sites out there that if you take a moment to research what other people are saying about this site, then that will give you a good indicator as to how reliable this information or reports are. This is a technique that's called lateral reading. Instead of staying on the page, open a new browser type and search for information about the source. Go to, if you're using Google, go on to Edge or another browser and then just do a search and see what comes up. Are they credible? Do they have a reputation for accuracy or misinformation, or are they actually known online as a source of propaganda? This is a way to find out, and a quick search can often reveal an agenda in seconds if you take that moment to look at it. Third off, you're looking at finding better coverage. Are other reliable independent news outlets reporting on the same story? If it's a major event and it's only being reported by one obscure website, well, that is a huge red flag for you and really gives you reason to pause and consider it. Now, when you look at the T in this, you're looking at tracing the claims to their original context. A photo, a quote, a statistic can be easily manipulated by taking out the context. For images, you can go to Google and you can actually use any of the Google or other search engines that allow you to backtrace photos. So you do an image search and it will tell you where else that picture has appeared online. This can instantly debunk an old photo being passed off as something new. Or we've seen where people use video games because sometimes they're very realistic and try to take screen grabs to make it appear as though that scene is happening within a modern or current war situation. So again, it shows how you can actually find out just by that simple task. Now, for example, the video of a shark swimming on a flooded highway after a hurricane. A reverse image, just searching, quickly revealed the shark was photoshopped from a picture taken years earlier. After all, everybody knows that the sharks are in my kitchen doing my dishes. They're not swimming around highways. I don't allow that. But beyond these steps, it's also crucial to recognize the manipulative language that's used to persuade us. Be on the lookout for logical fallacies, flaws in reasoning designed to trick you. A good example of this is the ad hominem fallacy, where someone attacks the person making an argument instead of the argument itself. I get that all the time, where people are cursing at me or swearing and threatening me, or just personal attacks online on my other sites. And that is common for people that have no argument when it comes to the actual facts of the story that's being reported. So again, people will go on there and they'll make comments encouraging you that you cannot trust their opinion on the economy. This person's never run a business if it's about economics and so on. Another is what's called the straw man, where someone misrepresents their opponent's argument to make it easier to attack. So you want to increase funding to schools. You must want to bankrupt the country. So that's a way of taking a statement and spinning it into a different narrative altogether, or just to anger or frustrate other people, saying, oh my God, if they do this funding, they're going to bankrupt the country and it's going to be horrible, when in fact it doesn't have one inch of reality to that statement when you look at the budget. Now, when you're watching out for the false dilemma, which presents only two extreme options where others may exist, you're either with us or you're against us. Well, that doesn't always translate into reality. And unfortunately, some people try to push that argument to make you think that it's black and white when there could be a combination thereof. Now, recognizing these tricks helps you to see through the noise and focus on the facts. But what happens when the information is real, but the platform itself is hiding you? This is what we talk about when we talk about shadow banning. Now, it brings us to the opaque world of platform governance. Let's talk about two things you've likely experienced but may not have a name for, and that's shadow banning and geo-blocking. Now, the shadow ban is what we experience here on this channel, and it's also called ghost banning or stealth banning. It's when a social media platform reduces the visibility of your content without telling you. You can still post and everything looks normal on your end, but your followers don't see your posts. And some of this actually happens to you, our viewers, when you post comments. You post the comments, but we don't see them. And that is something that we see often brought up in our comment section or via email. Now, when that happens, your followers aren't seeing it and your content doesn't appear in hashtag searches, which is a big deal when it comes to getting the word out, spreading your message, and being able to share your clips. You're essentially walking in and talking to an empty room. But why does this happen? It's usually an automated response to behavior that algorithms flag as spammy, like posting too much frequently, using dozens of irrelevant or banned hashtags, or using third-party bots to inflate your engagement. But this can also happen to content that skirts the edge of a platform's community guidelines, like sensitive political topics or copyright materials. This is where we come in. We have what is considered sensitive political topics. We talk about the Khalistan referendum. We talk about and call out India for their human rights abuses as well as other nations. And we talk about it. So again, that becomes politically sensitive. Is it correct what we report? Absolutely. But some governments and other individuals will report it as incorrect or misinformation, disinformation, all of this, so that this way the algorithms automatically filter our next videos. And that is a big problem because, of course, we want to reach a mass audience. And it throttles us. It keeps us down in the viewers and in subscribers. It also went and played into the role of demonetization on YouTube, where we don't make money for you watching the videos on YouTube. So just so you know, it is demonetized, but we are here bringing you the message. So how do you know if it's happening to you? Look for a sudden sharp drop in engagement that you can't explain. Check your analytics and your statistics on the different platforms. Or TikTok, for example, a key sign is a sudden drop in traffic from the For You page. On YouTube, it might be 0 views coming from suggested videos or from searches. The most definitive test is to have someone who doesn't follow you search for a unique hashtag that you have used. If you've used it in your post and it doesn't show up in that search that someone else is doing from a separate computer, so there's no cookies on there from your site as a subscriber, so they're not subscribed on a separate system or phone or whatever. If it doesn't show up, then you're likely being suppressed, and that is the easiest way to check. Now, if you suspect you've been shadow banned, the best first step is to take a break. Pause all activity for 48 to 72 hours. During that time, audit your account. Remove any third-party app that you've given access to and delete any recent posts that might be borderline or use banned hashtags. Once again, that is not a realistic option for us because, again, we have governments and big agencies that are battling against us to keep us down in terms of the shadow ban. The other invisible wall we encounter is what's called geo-blocking. And this is another important one because, of course, potential viewers in India cannot watch our episodes and our channel. This is when you are either A, not able to pull it up at all. It comes up with a web page error, usually 404 or others. Or it comes up that says this content is not available in your country. That's a simple and obvious way to know if it is being geo-blocked, but the others are less clear. Now, it's not just arbitrary. The primary reason generally for geo-blocking is by copyright and licensing agreements. So, of course, Netflix may have the rights to air a certain show in this country, but not over here because that costs them more for the licensing, or somebody else may already have licensing for that region. So it just shows a big difference there in terms of where it is legitimately used or where it is not. As I said, streaming services might have the rights to show the movie in Canada, but not in the United States, or vice versa. So again, it's all up to who owns those rights. To comply with the legal contracts, they block the access based on our locations, our personal locations, which are determined by the IP address. It's also used for market segmentation, offering different prices in different countries and to comply with local laws. So maybe you've got to pay taxes on your streaming service in one country, but not in another. So you're still paying your taxes that you should be. Now, many people use tools to get around these blocks. Most common are VPNs, or virtual private networks, and we've talked about those in the past. Now, the benefit of a VPN is that it routes your internet traffic through a server in another country, making it appear as though you are browsing from that location. So if I'm traveling, for example, to Brazil, I can use a VPN and make the system think that I'm still home in Canada by using a VPN. Now, the difference between the tools you use is very crucial to understand. A VPN is the most secure option because it actually encrypts all of your internet traffic and it protects your privacy. Now, some people are using what's called a proxy server, and that just routes your browser traffic through another server, but it can hide your location, but it typically does not encrypt your data. And therefore, it is providing others a big vulnerability where they can actually get into your system or capture your personal data from your system or anything you're sharing. And then there's the other one that's called a smart DNS, domain name server. Now, this service is designed specifically for streaming, and basically it only routes the tiny bit of traffic related to your location, making it very fast. But like a proxy, it offers absolutely no encryption. And that is a big concern because therefore it is putting you out to serious privacy vulnerabilities, potentially exposing your entire browsing history and your personal data. So the choice is a trade-off. If you just want to stream and speed is your priority, but safety is not or security is not, well, the smart DNS might work for you. But if you value your privacy and security at all, reputable VPN is the only safe choice, and that is very important. Now, how can you as a viewer help us here at Satledge and Perspectives? Well, you can help to reshare content, to repost it, to copy the actual site or the page where the show is. And you can post that on TikTok or on Facebook or others. And that just means that they can watch it, but they are watching it through our YouTube channel, which pushes our viewers up. It pushes up our rankings in the algorithms and helps us to try to get around some of the algorithm challenges. And most of all, it helps because it exposes more people to the information that we're sharing and allows for that potential subscription increase, which again, once we get higher levels of subscriptions, then that helps to push us up in the algorithms and get our voices out to a wider audience. So, where does that leave us in this digital world that's complex and changing every day? Well, the lines between real and fake are blurring. The platforms that we are using to make decisions about what we can see or what they're deciding that we can see is really important to understand because there are so many complexities that you may not realize. But navigating the world doesn't have to be overwhelming. It starts with a simple, powerful change in mindset. Remember what we said. Now, we have to move on from being passive consumers to information to being active critical thinkers. So again, that is a very important part. So just remember that the information that you are looking at, you want to see what the intent is behind it. Distinguish between an honest mistake, which is misinformation, a deliberate lie, which is disinformation, and a weaponized truth, that is malinformation. Second, arm yourself with simple, powerful verification tools. And remember the SIFT method as a reflex. Stop, investigate, find better coverage, and trace claims back to their source. Learn to spot the logical fallacies that are used to manipulate you. And we've all fallen prey to it. You know, even those of us that are very savvy in the systems and technology, we fall for it on occasion too, because it's just something that our mind has conditioned us for. But finally, to understand the digital spaces we inhabit, that they are not neutral. They are curated by algorithms and corporate policies that shape what we see and what we don't see. Be aware of the signs of shadow banning and make informed choices about the tools you access and the tools that you use to access other information. Be aware of the forces, take back control of your information diet, and protect yourself from manipulations. Become more responsible, informed digital citizens. With that, Angus, I think that goes a long way to explain it. I hope I didn't go too fast and too much all at once. But if you want to read the entire document that was created and referenced here, it is available on our Substack. So you can actually get even more details and more information on this important issue if you want to go to our Substack and check it out. One of the last things I'll say is that remember that the misinformation, whether it is misinformation, disinformation, or malinformation, that actually spreads rapidly faster on the algorithms and the internet than truthful information. Believe it or not, people eat it up. And that's why so many of the sites that you think are legitimate are using false information, misinformation, and malinformation because it gets them viewers, it gets them clicks, and at the end of the day, it increases their bottom line. And that's where the corporate executives have their responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to bring in that revenue. And that is, in a nutshell, Angus, a lot of information, but very important information. I hope that people liked it.
Yes, indeed, James. Thank you for that. That's it is a fascinating topic, and some really, really powerful information that you released in that report. It is a huge topic, and to me, this is the topic of the internet. The internet is both a very good thing and it's also a very bad thing. It's a very good thing because it does allow this incredible immediate dissemination of information. And I think the fact that, as you rightly say, James, that information can spread immediately, especially malinformation or misinformation or disinformation can spread literally at the speed of light. That is its danger. So that's the bad side. And it really brings it on to, okay, who actually is controlling this flow of information? Who controls what we see? Because don't forget, unfortunately, the internet isn't really as free as we sort of seem to think it is. We get our information usually through platforms that service this information. Platforms include obviously Facebook, Instagram, all the social media sites, but they also include, more importantly than that, the search engines. And of course, the search engines really are the gods of the internet now. They control what information is fed to you, in what order, in what priority, etc. So if you do a search on anything, you will get fed information that search engine decides you should get, not actually what is genuinely out there. And this is the important distinction here. And I'm going to use a prime example of this because this is really, really important. Because ultimately, the truth is the truth. Nothing can change the truth, but the truth can be presented in all sorts of different ways. And as you rightly said, James, in your report, it's very easy to take certain contexts and reframe the truth in a completely different light, in a completely different way that then doesn't reflect the truth. It cherry picks little bits of facts and then spins it into a completely different narrative, a completely different story. The Godi media is a prime example, of course, of how the Indian government, therefore the Indian media, spin the narrative. And we've given many examples of this in the past to prove it. I'm going to use a more domestic example now just to prove this. I've just quickly, whilst you've been talking, James, we had a few weeks ago the Unite the Kingdom march. A huge march, potentially up to 1 million people took to the streets of London. It was probably one of the largest gatherings of humanity in this country in history to protest against various issues, which of course included the illegal immigration, this loss of control of immigration into the United Kingdom, but it also included issues like freedom of speech, the fact that we are losing our freedom of speech, that our government is running out of accountability, etc. So there are a lot of issues at play, but there's an awful lot of very angry people who were at that march. Now, the people at that march included people from the Sikh community, from the Islamic community, from the Jewish community, of course, from the Christian community, but it included a whole raft of people from both the left wing and the right wing. The full political spectrum were there. There were socialists, there were conservatives, there were people in the middle, there were middle class, working class. Basically, the whole of British society was represented at that march because they were angry. They felt that their voice was not being heard democratically, that they were being ignored democratically by the government, and they were concerned about the direction of this country. Now, I've just done a quick Google search, and Google is a prime example of one of these platforms that decides how you should view a certain thing. Now, if I just add to this, here's a little bit of truth. There was probably about 1 million people on that march. There were, in that huge march, there were 26 arrests. Now, if my numbers are correct, I think it was about 19 of those arrests were from a counter-march. The anti-fascist, Antifa, or whatever they call it, the extreme left, had a tiny march. About 200 or 300 people turned up. 19 of them, or something like that, were arrested for violence and for disorder and for attacking the police, etc. So they're the facts. Now, just to put this in context, we had the Notting Hill Carnival. We have an annual carnival every year. It's controversial. It used to be a nice, happy occasion for families. It's just basically turned into a massive event of stabbings. There's usually, I think this year's carnival, there's several hundred arrests. There were several stabbings. There might even have been a murder, actually, in this year's carnival. But it's not unusual that there is a stabbing and a murder at these carnivals. Now, when the media reported that, the mainstream media reported it as a success. It was a lovely, happy occasion, when in fact the truth was there were hundreds of arrests, there were stabbings, etc., etc. Now, I'm going to show you what Google has just served up. As when I did a search, Unite the Kingdom March. Just let me just share that so you can see it. So this is the Google search of Unite the Kingdom March. First up is the BBC, a well-known left-wing news outlet here in the UK. Police hurt during Tommy Robinson's Unite the Kingdom. So the first story is about how the police were hurt. Really? Actually, very few police were actually hurt in that. The next one, The Guardian, a left-wing newspaper, talking about how polarised views about the rally. The police, arrests at the Unite the Kingdom march. The BBC, again, Unite the Union. Again, this is nothing to do with that march. This is a left-wing unions march. The Conversation, a left-wing story about Britain's far right. Sky News, all about 18 people linked to disorder. The Spectator, a far left magazine. The truth about the march. Full Fact, what we know about the arrests. So you can start to see the context. It's all about the arrests, the disorder, the attacks against the police. All those, without exception, are left-wing, and some of them far left-wing news outlets. There is not one story on that front page reflecting the truth about that march, the genuine size, how peaceful it was, what it actually genuinely represented, etc. So I'm using this as a prime example. And again, we talk about SIF, James. Stop. Yeah, I'm stopping now because I am angry when I see this. This is a prime example. We go on about how biased the Godi media is. Well, here it is. This is our media in the so-called democratic West. This is Google, this bastion of the internet, of the free internet, the democratic Western world. Silicon Valley, Google. Well, it's just dished up. It's decided that what we all need to know about that march, about 1 million very angry, ordinary people, British citizens who are genuine concerns about our democracy, are now being told it was all about attacking the police, it was violence, it was extremist, it was far right. You start to see the narrative, because the mainstream narrative has always been about this march, they're all far right extremists, which is so far from the truth. And that is what we should worry about. This is disinformation in its purest form. But this is not coming from some weird Indian outlet, this is Google. This is why we all need to be very, very careful about what we see, even what we search about. As you rightly said, James, go onto different browsers, and we don't have time now, but I guarantee, and I did this the other day, actually, if you remember, the people who watched that show, I did this very same thing, and I did Google, got very similar things, and I went on to another one, I think it was DuckDuckGo or something, and DuckDuckGo gave me a genuine, truthful list of what the march was about, what the route of the march, the information that you would expect to see. So if you don't think Google has a bias, there it is. And we do know Google is infiltrated by lots and lots of Hindutva agents. So again, more relevant to our audience, particularly in the Sikh community. Yeah, you wonder, if you do a Google search, do you think you're honestly going to get the truth about the Sikh community, about the Khalistan issue, etc.? Well, we'll do a quick search on Khalistan. I can guarantee what will come up. So again, James, yeah, this is a terrifying topic. A quick word on the views. I have also noticed, if you look at our last two videos, they were the thumbnails and the headings, etc., were very much anti-India. They talked about Indian organised crime. You look at the views, they are massively down. Clearly, this algorithm, the Silicon Valley controlled algorithm, Google once again, has discovered that those videos specifically were very critical of India, particularly in the thumbnail. What's happened to the views? If you want any proof of that. Now, the only commenters were, fortunately, it was our usual regulars. Thank you, bless you, to our loyal audience, because of course they know where to go find our videos. So most of the comments are from our loyal crew who are always there watching our videos. But from new people coming in, normally other videos, we get lots and lots of different people who might have found our videos almost by accident or through the algorithm because it's not so controversial. And we get comments from them. There are virtually no comments from new people on those videos that we specifically criticise India. And likewise, now that we're talking about India, it's likely words on this one as well. But there you go, James. And I think this is a very, very worrying thing. We all need to be very, very sceptical about the 21st century internet.
Absolutely. And I mean, the link between that and even media gatekeepers for newsrooms is quite phenomenal. I did a full hour last night on my ProPix channel and spent a whole hour talking about how they are using it as gatekeeping to really push the narrative and why there's such a change in the media landscape when now it's all about corporations and left or right. It's not about actually giving it down the center report on things now.
Indeed, it is very, very concerning. So, unfortunately, yes, our audience, we just have to keep reminding our audience, as you say, that first one is so important. The S for stop. Just stop, wait, and have a think about it. What really are we reading? Is it true, or is it mis or dis or even malinformation? So, right, James, we're running way over time now, so I'm going to have to rush on to my first story. And Jagtar Singh Johal, this is Jagtar Singh Johal is one of the most important issues, in my opinion, about not just the Sikh community, but actually about the British government. Because the story of Jagtar Singh Johal is really, he is the bellwether. His issue is the test of our British government and its attitude towards the Sikh community. Its attitude towards human rights versus commerce, versus the dollar. And Jagtar Singh Johal, as our audience know, he's been in arbitrary detention for nearly 8 years. Next month will be his eight-month anniversary. And of course, there's been an awful lot of people campaigning about it, but he stands as an example of a British citizen who was arrested overseas under very questionable circumstances and remains in jail still without any final sentencing. He's been charged, he's got 8 charges still up against him. But he's got nowhere. He's in legal limbo and deliberately being kept against any form of law, any rule of law, against anything that we would expect from a supposedly democratic nation. And the big question is, what is the British government doing about this? And that is the key question. Now, Yvette Cooper took over David Lammy as our new Foreign Secretary. When I'm sorry to say, useless Prime Minister once again, when he had a reshuffle once again to try and shore up his failing administration, he replaced the incompetently useless David Lammy as a Foreign Secretary with Yvette Cooper. And I said at the time, well, she's just as incompetent. Well, lo and behold, Yvette Cooper met Dr. Jaishankar, her counterpart in India, back on the 25th of September, just a couple of weeks ago. Did she raise the issue of Jagtar Singh Johal with her counterpart, Dr. Jaishankar? Well, no, she didn't. As poor Jaggy's brother, Gurpreet, who's been campaigning massively behind the scenes with the British government to try and get them to move on it and do something about it. Gurpreet has actually had to tweet shortly after, a couple of days ago, earlier today, the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office, that's Yvette Cooper's ministry, confirmed the new Foreign Secretary did not raise the issue of Jaggy's case with her counterpart at the UN. And again, why not? Again, it is one of the most pressing issues about a British citizen arbitrarily detained. And yet she didn't even mention it. She is lobbied on an almost daily basis by Gurpreet and Jaggy's followers. And yet she didn't even mention it, which, again, I'm almost speechless. Now, as a result, the lobbying is just mounting and mounting. And Keir Starmer is heading off, or has actually head off now. He landed his first visit to go meet Narendra Modi in Delhi. He landed yesterday in Delhi, and it was met with great fanfare because, of course, India are delighted the fact that they are being blessed, if that's the right word, with a visit from Keir Starmer, and the Indian media. I'll just play a short extract from the Indian media just to give you an example of the sort of stuff they're talking about.
News that's coming in at the moment is the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who's arrived in the city of Mumbai. He's in India. This is his first official visit to the country. Strengthening India-UK partnership. He's all set to hold a conversation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi also. It will be economy, security and cooperation. Those are the items on agenda. Those are the conversations that he will have while he's in India. UK Prime Minister will also be participating in many business meetings. Prime Minister Modi and the UK Prime Minister, they will be addressing FinTech Festival also. Both the countries will also be present.
And then it does actually show in this video, you see Keir Starmer talking on his flight,
within the span of this few
and
months,
he's
UK
talking
Prime
about,
Minister
I'll turn the
visits
sound
India,
off actually,
and,
because it's
from
actually an
science and
Indian,
technology to
it's
sport,
an Indian
and from,
voice. There we go. So as you can see, Starmer was actually on the phone to somebody in India talking how he's very much looking forward to working with you as we explore all the opportunities and take full advantage. It's very positive. Now, you'd expect that. It would, of course, be very diplomatic, very much looking forward to these opportunities. But there you go, free trade agreement. So there's a clue about what this is all about. Now, in the press release from the government website, the UK government has released the fact that 125 of the UK's most prominent CEOs, leading entrepreneurs, university vice chancellors, cultural institutions will join the PM on his trade mission to India. So this is all about trade. His visit is all about trade deals. Now the big question is he going to raise the issue of human rights? Now, you'll notice, and if you go across any of the media or any of the press releases, and the press release from the UK government website, what you're looking at now is an excerpt from that. That whole press release talks entirely about commerce, nothing else. There is nothing about human rights, not even a hint that we will consider, we will, of course, raise the issue of, or we will keep in mind the issues of human rights. There is nothing. It's all about trade deals. It's all about commerce and money. And this is a concern. Now, the last time that Starmer met with Modi, was it last year? We know he never raised the fact of Jagtar Singh Johal. Well, he claimed he did, but nothing came of it. I mean, it was almost like a one-liner sort of thing, but there was no great sort of press release, no great, we have raised it, we will deliver his freedom, etc. In other words, if you're hoping for more, you're going to be sorely disappointed. Now, Gurpreet, his brother, is a Labour councillor. And again, as I say, he has been he's been campaigning so vociferously as you would as a family member, but he just feels he's just getting nowhere. To quote, he's actually said, "I think now is the time where genuinely I believe that Keir Starmer has all the ammunition he requires to really stand up for Jagtar and bring him back home. I think the PM is the best placed person to advocate for Jagtar's release, given in 8 years no evidence has been produced. The Indians continuously prolong his detention. They haven't produced the evidence in 8 years. It's not likely they're going to produce any evidence. Keir Starmer should be saying enough is enough and bring Jaggy back home." And the quote right across a lot of Western media is enough is enough, saying enough is enough. So they're all appealing to Keir Starmer. Enough is enough. Those three words, the powerful three words, have been thrown at Keir Starmer from many different angles. Enough is enough. What are you going to do about it? Now, pressure is even coming from the opposition. This is a Conservative MP, Alicia Kearns. I think she's the Conservative MP for Rutland or somewhere. So she's brought up the facts of the case, as we know, and saying, right, you've got to do something about it. You must raise Jagtar's case. Now, I have to say, yeah, very well, but you were in power for 14 years. What did you do about it? Absolutely nothing. And one could argue, in fact, you did even less than Keir Starmer was doing about it. So I find it slightly hypocritical that there is a Conservative MP now finally finding her voice. Where was your voice when you were in power? And I also have to throw in here, where are the voices of all the 11 Sikh MPs about this? Now, I'm sure certainly there are a very small number of those Sikh MPs who have been doing very sterling work. But it does appear that there are several Sikh MPs and MPs who, and I'm not going to name them, but watch yesterday's show if you want a clue, who are not swinging their weight, who are members of this government, who are part of the Labour Party and have Keir Starmer's ear. Why are they not out there in social media, on the media, being interviewed, saying, we will do something about it. I am pressuring Keir Starmer. So again, a failure from our very own Sikh MPs. Why are they not being a bit more vocal about this? Now, and just a few other sort of issues bubbling around this. The media The Free Jaggi team have actually been, again, very vocal and very active in this campaign. There is, they had a hearing, it was a bit, 3 days ago. There is a legal case going on, which I'll talk about in a moment. They had the first hearing about this legal case against the UK government intelligence community about human rights breaches that occurred both in India and, of course, across in here. Now, this, I'll talk about it now. Basically, there is a human rights case, a legal case being launched by Jaggi's team against the British government and bringing into that MI5 and MI6, our intelligence services, claiming that intelligence was shared with their Indian counterparts that then led not just to the arrest and detaining of Jagtar Singh Johal, but also the torture, which in any democratic and any legal context is illegal. By definition, under international law, it is illegal, it is a criminal offence for any government to share information with a foreign government that leads to an individual of that or citizen of that country being tortured. Torture in any country is, of course, illegal. So that case has actually just started. Now, the other big issue here, and I say the Jaggi case is a bellwether, this is a test, because it is not just Jaggi, and this does affect many other minority communities particularly. There are several other British citizens who are detained arbitrarily, illegally in other countries. There is somebody in Iran, or in fact there was somebody in Iran that had just been released, and there is somebody in Egypt, for example. Now, the Iranian, was it Nazanin Zaghari Ratcliffe? She was a famous political prisoner in Iran, and I think she was just released 2 years ago. She likewise has made a statement and appealed to Keir Starmer about Jaggi, saying, look, I was released, this is before Starmer became Prime Minister, I was released, but I was an example of what the British government should be doing, that the British government did lobby to get me out. Why is the British government not lobbying about Jagtar Singh Johal? What is it about India and the Indian government and the British establishment's relationship with India that is stopping the British government from demanding the release of this British citizen? It's a big issue. And then just to wrap this up, Dan Dolan, he's the Deputy Director of Reprieve. Reprieve is one of these very powerful human rights organisations that does lobby. He's made, again, a very powerful public statement, and I won't read it in full because it's quite lengthy. But basically, he's reiterated the absolute ridiculous facts of this situation is that Jaggi has been detained for nearly 8 years, that his case just rolls on. Witnesses never appear for the prosecution, just never appear in court, so it keeps just getting delayed. At this present rate, he will be in prison for decades, still without any sentencing, without actually reaching a conclusion. This, under any law on any country, is not legal. It is certainly not democratic. And yet India are getting away with this. And the British government are not doing anything about it. And as he said, this is just an absolutely outrageously obvious breach of a human rights, of an individual's human rights. And why is the British government not doing anything about it? Again, it just seems bizarre from any lens that the British government has done absolutely nothing about Jagtar Singh Johal when he's already had one case thrown out. A judge finally said, you're not guilty. Now, there's a double jeopardy case where, in this situation, double jeopardy is you cannot be tried for the same crime twice. So his other 8 charges are for effectively exactly the same crime. So under the double jeopardy rule, under any democratic rule of law, and Indian law is based on British law, which in turn is reflective of Western democracies, he's already been cleared of one case, and therefore, by almost legal implication, he should be immediately cleared of all the other 8. And yet, here he is, still imprisoned arbitrarily. Now, a Foreign Office spokesman, the Foreign Office, of course, have been asked for their comments about this, and their spokesperson said, we continue to raise concerns about Mr. Johal's prolonged detention with the Government of India at every opportunity, and the Foreign Secretary will shortly meet Mr. Johal's brother to discuss the ongoing situation. I'm reaching for a rude word here, but I'm not. In the context of there may be children watching, I'm not going to come out with a word that springs to mind, but I think our audience can probably fill in that gap there, James. But there you go, James. I'm almost speechless with just the Keir Starmer and the preceding government, the Conservative government. And our commenters are often asked the same question. What is it with the British government? Why is the British government so scared of demanding Jagtar's release. Why on earth are they kowtowing to Indian pressure? Why are they almost subservient to India? Why will they not get Jagtar released? It just defies logic or common sense, James.
Absolutely. It's not something that I've been saying for, 2 years now, that I've been saying that I could foresee a civilized lawsuit coming because of the fact that they are, through neglect of the rights of Jaggy, that they are allowing the abuse, the torture, and the imprisonment for absolutely no lawful reason when it comes to the UK not taking steps to secure the freedom of one of their citizens. And I've said, we've seen that in Canada where somebody was guilty of certain acts. And yet, because the Canadian government failed in their duty to represent a Canadian citizen in Guantanamo Bay and what he was subjected to, therefore the Canadian government had to find a big settlement to avoid going to a trial that probably would have resulted in an even larger settlement. And we're talking, $10 million. And if they had gone to court, could have been $100 million. But again, it is about what responsibility does the government have when you are arbitrarily detained in another nation? And this is where they're failing, Angus.
Indeed. And there are two very interesting legal cases actually on the cards here against the British government, the British establishment, effectively. Of course, we've got this case of Jaggy's supporters, Jaggy's body, entity, whatever you want to call it, Jaggy's party, are taking the British government to court about potentially this sharing of intelligence with India that led to his arrest and his torture. So that in itself could reveal all sorts of interesting information. Of course, then we have Jagtar Singh Johal, the Khalistani activist who was probably murdered again by India and under transnational repression. And we have Michael Polat, the barrister who's now acting on behalf of Jagtar Singh Johal, his family, to again bring that case. He's demanding a judge-led review of Jagtar Singh Johal's death, which again in itself will involve bringing in the intelligence services to reveal, almost probably against their will, to reveal intelligence about what actually went on behind the scenes, because there are accusations that the British establishment has deliberately buried that whole Jagtar Singh Johal case. They are clearly too uncomfortable to actually release the truth about this. So these two cases alone, and I'll predict what will happen. It'll just get buried, it'll get squashed, because the British establishment is very good at this. It does it on a regular occasion. And if you ever talk about public inquiries, in the history of of the United Kingdom of Great Britain, there has never been a public inquiry that has found the British establishment guilty. So, in other words, if you're bringing a case like this, if you expect to actually find the British establishment guilty of anything, you are going to be sorely disappointed, because you're up against the British establishment. That is the issue. That's the problem. So, unfortunately, it is a bit of a David and Goliath situation. But that is not to say we must not hold back. We really must support these legal cases and hope we just get a slight crack in that armour of the British establishment and try and get some information about the truth, because again, that's really what we'll need to find out. But anyway, James, we must march on, because as I say, we've talked a lot on today's show. We do need to move on to our comment section, as we're running out of time. So stay safe. Again, actually, a very relevant comment here. This is a good comment, and again, this actually reflects something we've talked a lot about the image of India. As Stacey said, Westerners often see India as this vibrant spiritual carnival. It's all about yoga, mysticism, Bollywood, polite people dressed colourfully. And it is this image of, I even watched a wonderful television programme here in the UK the other night about two of our celebrities went round India. And it was a fabulous, I'd say, it was a really, because I love India. And it was a fabulous series about how they visited Delhi and all sorts of areas, Rajasthan, etc. But it gave this really, really false image it was a very, very carefully procured image of India. And as Stacey says, what lies beneath the surface is this corruption, inequality, rising religious extremism. The cheerful image of decorated cows, dancing monkeys, music, fun, festivals, it masks the rude aggression of Hindutva, hardline groups, etc., etc. How true this is, James, how true that this fake image of India that we have here in the West, and really, well, as we have done, when you peel back the layers, you look underneath the surface, it's a very different story.
Absolutely, and one that we see is blocked from social media because of, again, what we were talking about earlier in the show, the shadow banning, the geo blocking, and all of that, where the truth just doesn't get out, Angus.
Indeed, it is. It's quite it's sad. It's very sad in many ways. I say because India is such a fabulous country. I did a podcast last week with Dr. Singh Johal. We talked about. In fact, the title, really, the podcast was, "Is India addicted to mass murder, to genocide?" And clearly the answer is yes, as if you watch that podcast, because we laid out all sorts of evidence, or Dr. Grewal did. A lot of really good comments after that one. Jagtar said, "The British government has received not only the best DNA in humanity with Sikhs in society, but it's reaped the rewards of education, discipline and defence systems from the Sikh Empire." Absolutely. I mean, we the British Empire, Great Britain has inherited a huge amount of positive things from the Sikh community. I think that's why, the feeling towards the Sikh community is actually generally so positive. The lies and efforts to hide the great good of humanity via Sikhs is appalling. Yeah, absolutely. You only have to look at all Sikhs as a minority. We pay the most taxes, we take nothing, claim nothing, but we donate more than the majority of the population. Again, through Saver, absolutely. Right. And you say, the Brits refuse to stand with Sikhs and back the truth. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that bit. I think the British government, and again, it's all about the distinction here, the British government refuses to stand with Sikhs and back the truth. Yeah. The British people, I think, as a whole, and whenever I talk to people who say, I work on a Sikh channel, I like the Sikhs, to almost anybody I've ever mentioned it to, I like the Sikhs, because I think there is a really good, powerful, strong feeling of goodwill between British, Sikhs are British, but generally, let's say white British people have a very warm feeling towards our Sikh community exactly because of this very reason. Because the Sikh community have been so positive, they've integrated so well, they've contributed so massively to our society at every level, whether it's the police, the army, or just through Saver in the street. It's again, I think so. Again, that's a really important distinction there. Blame the British government, not the British people, because I believe, James, the British people, as in Canada, I suspect, and the British people are very much supportive of our Sikh community.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. Here in Canada as well, we have a deep-rooted respect for the majority of Canadians, a very deep-rooted respect, because we understand what they've brought to this country. We understand what they've contributed and how they are there for building communities, no matter where you're from. And of course, that is what Canada is all about, Angus.
Indeed. And Jagtar's final line there, I totally endorse, never trust the British government. Yes, I think I'll leave it there. I think we can all agree with that.
Or any government.
Or any government for that matter, absolutely. Yes, I think that stands for any government. Riaz Human says, no single doubt about it, from 84 to 97, the Indian government carried out Sikh genocides by the secret agencies, the police, absolutely. In other words, yeah, the prevailing sentiment, certainly amongst the majority of the audience, was yes, there have been just genocide after genocide. There is this addiction to mass killing. And lol peopleism says they've been doing it since 1947. It's ever since the Brahmins got majority. And Jagtar Singh says it's the Brahmins, basically. And Jagtar Singh even follows this up with a message actually from Dr. Grewal to the Sikh community in both Punjab particularly, but also around the diaspora. And I think the diaspora have woken up to the fact it really is wake up, for God's sake, wake up to what is going on. You are being oppressed. You have been oppressed. There is potentially a slow genocide going on behind the scenes here. But the Indian government is doing its best to drive the Sikhism out of India and out of existence. So wake up, please push back on it. That was the message from Dr. Grewal, as in fact endorsed by Jagtar Singh, James.
Yeah, and it's just about people actually standing their ground. Stand for what you believe in, and that's what it comes down to.
Indeed. And Truth is Winner. Thank you, Truth is Winner. One of our regular stirrers of the pot, I'd like to say. I think Truth is Winner has made it onto our Critics Corner, but not this time, I have to say, because he made a wonderful, it could be she. Truth is Winner made a wonderful comment. Can somebody give a raise to this employee? This was actually after my video, after my podcast. So thank you for that. But then you followed it up with, on actually a different video, you then made pretty much the same sort of comment. How much is the salary of you both? And Sufton Muffin says, well, look, we're here because we're not the Godi media. We're actually here to spread the truth. Well, James and I, Truth is Winner, we do it for the love of it. We don't do it for money. I mean, yes, by all means, give us a raise if you make us a better offer. Make us a better offer. But no, absolutely. We are here Because we're here to spread the truth. We do it because we believe in the cause. We are passionate about what we talk about, James.
Absolutely. And I mean, we are here, we do this, but we also have other endeavors. So I do acting in Vancouver in different shows. I have my own entrepreneurial spirit, so I have my own companies that I deal with. So again, it's it's not it's not going to make us rich by any stretch being here, but it gives us the privilege of talking with you and bringing truth to the masses.
Indeed. And the truth is, can somebody give raise to this employee? Absolutely. I fully endorse that one. Stuff to muffins. It's always the Gujarati mafia who betrayed and robbed India from centuries. Interesting. I didn't know this historically, but we do talk about the Gujarati mafia. Of course, Modi and many others in power, and of course Bishnoi, a Gujarati. This Gujarati mafia. But as Stuff to Muffin says, the real message here: the Khalsa will teach them a good lesson. Indeed, it's all about the Khalsa. This is the fight back. This is the Khalistan. The core of Khalistan will be the Khalsa. It will be the people of Khalistan that will make it such a huge success, James.
Absolutely. And in the interest of time, I'll pass that on to you for the next comment because it looks like a good one.
Indeed, absolutely. Satbachan Singh says, as usual, great show. Well, thank you. Thank you for your comments. Keep undoing. Great job. I think what you meant is keep doing a great job. But actually, ironically, keep undoing. What we are here to do is undo. Is to pick apart the misinformation, the disinformation, and find the truth beneath. So actually, you are right in saying undoing. The great job. But the final word goes to Waheguru Satnam, who says, Khalistan is the only solution. Khalistan Zindabad. Indeed, Khalistan Zindabad, as we always like to end the show. But that is it for another day. Thanks so much for watching. As always, do keep your comments coming in. Thank you to all of you who have commented. Always much appreciated. Even just the short comments, the nice complimentary comments. We do appreciate them. We do read them all. But do let us know if the stories that you think we should be talking about, as many of you have been doing. Do email us at message@satellitetv.com if you want to send us a few links about interesting stories. But that's it for another day and indeed another week. There will hopefully be a podcast uploaded tomorrow. But thanks so much for watching for all of this week. Do stay loyal to us as many of you have been doing, so much appreciated. But that's it for another week. It's goodbye from me and goodbye from James.
And don't forget, Saturday night, 8 p.m. for the call-in show. If you want to call in ahead of time and leave a voicemail to be played on the show, you can call 604-385-5093. Stay safe, everyone.
Indeed. You have, of course, been watching Perspectives. We will see you next week.